was shocked at anything, you know what I'm saying?
Welcome to the Undercurrent. I'm Lauren Windsor. Joining me for this special report on Citizens United is the big boss man himself, Cenk Uygur. Cenk, I know that you are totally passionate about Citizens United, repealing it, instituting public campaign financing, as am I. So tell us what you're doing with Wolf PAC.
So Wolfpack is a little different than the other groups because we want to push for a constitutional convention. Now, a lot of groups think, hey, constitutional amendment is the right way to go so that we can get corporate money out of politics and corporate personhood and publicly finance all elections. So we share that with a lot of the groups, but we think that it is unreasonable to expect this incredibly corrupt Washington politics to all of a sudden decide, hey, you know what? 2/3 of us agree. Golly gee, you guys are right. Let's get money out of politics. No, they love money in politics. That's what they base their campaigns on. So there is another way to do it. You get 2/3 of the states to call a convention, and at the Constitutional Convention you could propose this amendment. I know that people are scared about that, but what they should be scared about is what we have today, which is an absolute and utter disaster. We have basically lost our representative democracy because the votes don't matter anymore, the money matters.
So Cenk, are you working with other groups to get this accomplished? Are you building coalitions? What's your game plan?
So that's a great question. So obviously we're open to working with all different groups. Right now what we're doing is we've got over 5,000 volunteers on the ground that have said, hey, I'm a lawyer or I'm a web guy, etc., all these different expertise, and we want to help get this convention going for you guys. So what we're doing is we're building political maps of every single state. Who's on our side, who's against us. In fact, if you go to wolf-pac.com, there's a map of the United States on our home page. You click on your home state and you see the status. You see all the representatives. If they've been contacted already, are they with us or against us? How you can contact them so you can help us build that list. And then who are the friendliest people that we can go to introduce legislation? Which states are the most advanced? So for example, in California and in Mississippi, resolutions have already been introduced. And how can you support those resolutions? So it's very specific in terms of actually getting our goals accomplished state by state.
Well, excellent. So viewers, go to Wolfpack, wolf-pac.com to get involved with Cenk's group. And please stay tuned for the rest of the show where we will discuss the efforts of many of the other groups involved in the campaign against Citizens United. The California Clean Money Campaign is pushing to pass the California Disclose Act, the state's version of the failed national bill. The legislation would enact more stringent disclosure requirements in political advertising. Trent Lang, the president of the California Clean Money Campaign, and former Senator Russ Feingold spoke about the group's efforts at a recent fundraiser in LA.
This election, where we're seeing estimates of at least $6 billion nationally, $6 billion nationally for all races being spent. Here in California, it's just as bad. We're having hundreds of millions of dollars of anonymous spending on the ballot measures here in California.
First of all, can you imagine what these conversations are like that are going on where people can call people up knowing that it will not be disclosed? They're probably not real pretty conversations. We say, at least in the Midwest, that there's no such thing as a free lunch. I would submit there's no such thing as a free $10 million contribution either. When we did McCain-Feingold, people said to me sometimes, the corporate leaders actually saw me came to me and said, you know, we don't like this either. We don't like being hit up for these contributions. They said, Russ, why do you call it legalized bribery? It's not legalized bribery, it's legalized extortion. They're right, because, you know, it's not like some CEO sits at his desk and goes, we have too much money here. I think I'll call up Chuck Schumer and give him $1 million. The call goes the other way. The call is from the politician when we have a system like soft money, or in this case, sort of a phony, you know, group of people who've gone down the street from the politician's office to do it. So, in effect, corporate people and wealthy people in this country are now the fall guys of our system. And any amount of money can be asked. What a frightful thing for somebody who's in business, who has a fiduciary duty to their company and to their shareholders to make sure they do well. They're thinking, well, you know, I got to play this game. It's the way the game works, or my company's going to get hurt. Think about it from the point of view of how wrong it is for those who actually create the jobs in this country. It's victimizing them as well. But there's something far more pernicious about this, and this is what McCain and I talked about in soft money. The real problem is that after the election, both parties are bought off. And so you get legislation by a 90 to 10 vote, like trade agreements that send our jobs overseas. Like the Telecommunications Act of 1996, which crushed diversity in media. Like the repeal of the Glass-Steagall Act, which brought this country into this depression that we faced because of money that both parties were taking.
No one, when she mentioned United Republic, knew what United Republic is, and it's such a huge force in getting money out of politics right now, not to mention Move to Amend, which is having a convergence in LA this weekend. If you don't know who Move to Amend is, get online, movetoamend.org. Sister Giant is happening in November with Marianne Williamson. One of the top events, or one of the top issues, is campaign finance reform, and I'm wondering, like, how much outreach you are doing, like, to these other groups, because when you said DFA being the top, we coordinate with DFA and the California Clean Money Campaign. United Republic, Move to Amend, and Sister Giant, some of these are like really big organizations. Wolf PAC with Jink's campaign. So, is this something that you're actively approaching?
Yeah, obviously we consider everybody to be a friend, and we work with everybody. We are not able to comprehensively know what every group is doing every day, nor do we care to. We just want to help. And so if people call us up and ask us to help, we try to help. But we are not the clearinghouse of all that's happening, and I urge you to continue your efforts here. I think they're terrific.
Thank you. I talked with Mr. Feingold, who's also the founder of Progressives United, about disclosure and the First Amendment. My biggest issue right now is Citizens United and campaign finance reform.
As it should be.
It's the root of all evil, really.
There you go.
Yeah. So the Young Turks, Cenk, they're working on it through Wolf PAC. Are you pushing for legislation that would actually say that corporations are not people and take away the right entirely to donate money from unions and corporations?
The group that I founded, Progressives United, is devoted first and foremost to overturning the Citizens United decision. In other words, you get rid of that decision, you don't have this crazy idea that the corporations are the same as the rest of us. You can't change that just through legislation. You need to overturn the Supreme Court decision or have a constitutional amendment.
To critics that would say that it's a First Amendment issue, what would you say to them?
Well, then they haven't read Citizens United. When it comes to the Disclose Act, 8 of the 9 justices said disclosure is perfectly appropriate. In fact, they basically said you should do it. And so, of course, there are people that think that somehow corporate contributions are First Amendment free speech rights, but for 100 years this country has felt otherwise. Teddy Roosevelt signed the Tillman Act, which was the law of the country prohibiting corporations from doing this until 5 justices decided that they could overrule the will of the American people.
Move to Amend is a coalition of hundreds of organizations and thousands of individuals calling for a constitutional amendment that would end corporate personhood and mandate the regulation of corporate money in politics. From Friday, October 19th to Sunday, October 21st, the group held its regional SoCal convergence at Occidental College in Los Angeles. Activists came together for workshops on grassroots organizing and movement building, led by Move to Amend's national leadership team. Daniel Lee and I discussed the Stampede Tour, a collaborative effort with Ben Cohen of Ben & Jerry's.
We're basically going to all of our affiliates and then different Occupy camps and spreading the word using this huge Rube Goldberg stamping machine as a huge draw.
This machine, it stamps the bills. Like, if you've ever seen dollar bills that say, "Where's George? Follow George," they're putting witty phrases on dollar bills, you know, having to do with Move to Amend and getting money out of politics.
Yeah, they basically say things like, corporations are not people, money is not free speech, which is, of course, the language that we'd like to see in our amendment. Another good one is not to be used for bribing politicians.
I love that one. I saw that and I thought it was genius.
And the one that most Aki friends love the most is the system isn't broken, it's fixed.
I spoke with George Friday and David Cobb about the importance of coalition building in creating a national movement. All of these different campaigns, these diverse campaigns, whether it's United Republic, whether it's Move to Amend, whether or not it's like Get Money Out or the California Clean Money Disclose Act, everyone needs to be talking to each other like on a weekly basis.
But they might have their head down. I know that folks have been working to get money out of politics since I was in college. We've been working on this issue for over 15 years. And for most of the people who are doing the simply getting money out of elections or clean elections or getting money out of politics. What I mean by they've got their head down is they're very focused, oftenly very much working in the trench, just hammering away thinking, we're going to get it out of Congress. We're going to get these elected officials who are addicted to the money to start with to give it up. And no disrespect to them, but their analysis is narrow and their tactics are limited. And the concept of building a movement to take back our country and take back democracy, chances are hasn't occurred to them because they've been wedded to a certain strategy that I think they've been following since the 80s, and it isn't working.
This is not something we just discovered. And to be very clear, we don't believe that we had a functioning democratic republic before Citizens United.
right.
And versus FEC in 2010. Anybody out there in broadcast land believe that we had a functioning democratic republic? Okay, no.
Sister Giant, an event spearheaded by spiritual author Marianne Williamson, aims to create a woman-powered political movement in this country to address our gravest societal ills. On the first day, experts will address 3 major issues: childhood poverty, incarceration, and yes, overturning Citizens United. The second day will feature a special training by the Women's Campaign School at Yale University. I've personally been involved with Marianne's efforts as a member of the media outreach team. She sat down to speak with me recently at her home in West Hollywood.
We're having a 2-day session on issues that you might think of as a politics of conscience. I figure that no matter who wins the election, we really need to talk, because the kind of fundamental changes that we need in this world represent a total change in worldview, would represent shifting from economic values as the organizing principle for human civilization to humanitarian values for the organizing principle of human civilization. Politics should be the collective expression of our view of ourselves and our relationship to the world, to the planet, to the universe. And right now, it is a very entrenched conversation that isn't aligned with the heart, it isn't aligned with higher consciousness, because it doesn't honor compassion. We have 23.1% child poverty in the United States. Among 35 developed nations, we are second only to Romania. We have the highest incarceration rate of any country in the world or any country in history. And also, while Citizens United stays in place, that decision is like a cancer underneath all the other cancers, because it totally solidifies the way that money and the way our politicians are almost forced to act like handmaidens to this corporate order.
Just to answer how it is that we could get to the point of being, just going with the blinders on, I think that we get so caught up in the rat race that we forget about the human race.
If we're going to change the social agreement articulated by Abraham Lincoln, which was that we are to be a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. If we're going to change that to government of a few of the people, by a few of the people, for a few of the people, it should certainly merit a debate. If you say in today's world, given the concerns that you and I share about the moneyed influence, undue influence of money on our politics, if all you're going to do is activism and policy work, what you're basically saying is, after the plutocracy has taken everything at once and dropped its crumbs on the floor, we want to be involved in divvying up the crumbs. That's the best we can do? I don't think so. And I also think that we have struggled so long as women to get equal power. And I'm not saying that all of that has been accomplished, but enough of it has been accomplished that the conversation should not just be about us. It should not just be about our getting what we want and what we need. Our conversation should now be, what do we do with the power that we have? We are 51% of the population of this country. We're not a special interest group. We are 51% of the most powerful nation on earth. If American women said, no more starving children, 17,000 children are not going to starve on this planet every day. And by the way, we're not going to have 23.1% child poverty in the United States. I always say, we're not angry anymore, we just, this shit has to stop. And as we rise up that way, American womanhood can be a moral force on this planet, and that's what it should be.
Sister Giant will take place on November 10th and 11th. For more information, please go to sistergiant.com. I have one last question. How can we really be Progressives United without uniting progressives? I urge all of you working on this important issue to keep that question in mind. Our strategy must be one of unity. Thanks for watching. I'm Lauren Windsor. Get pulled in to the undercurrents.
Inside the book of Revelations, demons came from heavenly places, and it makes me wonder if I'm under some sort of spiritual matrix with the truth pulled over my eyes, with the evil forces that compromise my state of mind. Have I been hypnotized to believe in lies with the monologue, questioning God like Habakkuk, cause the odds keep stacking up? Where is the illumination for the human nation? We are ruining nations by the moves we're making. They try to search for peace by going to war. It don't make sense, like trying to blend oil and water in a bowl. It'll never happen. Look at the reaction from the double tap, and retaliation is what happens. It just never